George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the nation, celebrating people we feel good about. We got a superstar in the house. Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens joins us on the program. It's been a minute. One of my favorite people to talk to because the sister's deep. And so let's get right into it. First of all, how you doing? Well, welcome to the program.
I'm doing well, family as well. Just doing the work. It's been a long, hot, trying summer, but we're going to keep working at things, and I believe you and I are going to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of that. So I was listening to the radio this morning, and the commentator was talking about every day you hear somebody stabbed, as somebody stabbed, somebody shot, something. What's going on in your view?
Yeah, and we adapted speak with Lateef Johnson Kinsey, the director of the Mayor's Office to Reduce Gun Violence. He and Pablo Irube, who we were blessed to have come aboard with us from the Bloomberg Philanthropies as a fellow, so last year doing a assessment of what is actually driving our gun violence. And George, while other communities really have huge drug trafficking issues or huge large gang, and we do have gangs, but we're not the Crips or the Bloods, so it's not to that level. Our gun violence is purely conflict. Individuals who have beef with each other, who find their path to resolving that conflict is picking up a gun and violence ensuing. And it really is a tragic reason for why we are seeing this gun violence in our community.
Yeah, and what I'm implied in that is, and this conflict will follow these individuals wherever they are, and so if I see you over here, I'm going to be reckless, and I'm going to just do that. And so you and the mayor's office to reduce gun violence with Lateef, y'all are trying to make a difference, and y'all trying to hire some folk to do that. And the Common Council, you spoke recently to the Common Council about part of that, which was paying people who may be in the game still to do some of the work. And the council and some community members objected to that. And so you guys said, well, let's look at it a different way. And the council is still considering it at the time of this conversation. So tell me what y'all are trying to do and why you are down with the revamping.
So what Safer Streets Initiative is a comprehensive approach based on that year-long assessment conducted, and really engaging with some national leaders on this front. President Biden has really taken a look at violence prevention and understanding that it is a two-pronged approach, multi-pronged, but mainly two-pronged approach. One is law enforcement. So supporting law enforcement for activity, absolutely, without question. But also parallel to that is what is called community violence intervention. And so we have had the opportunity to work with some national leaders on this. Dr. Chico Tillman is one of them, to come on and help us really identify from a third eye perspective what our issues are here in the city of Syracuse. And he signs on just and co-signs what we have found, and it is disputes that erupted into gun violence. So Safer Streets looks to adopt multiple approaches to this. One is what we call credible messengers. These are individuals who themselves may have been arrested and spent significant time because they were involved in gun and gang and drug activity. But they have come back. They have absolutely seen the error of their ways. They're on the lines. Many of them are just out here volunteering to interrupt beefs between communities, and their reputation that actually sent them to jail is the same reputation that earns them respect from the individuals that we are trying to work with. So, I got a question from a person from the press, and was like, but they're respected because they were involved in criminal activity. And I said to that individual, I'm trying to garner the person that they will listen to. And that person is not me. That person may not necessarily be Lateef, but that person may be the person on the block who has come back from prison, who is absolutely not walking the middle line, but is now on the side of law and order. Many of these credible messengers recognize the damage that was caused to their communities, the impact, the number of their friends that are either in prison or dead, and really want to contribute. So we'll bring on some credible messengers. They will do mediations. They will do violence interruption work. We're going to refer those individuals to case managers, who will also be individuals from 2 agencies that we've identified pending approval from the council, and they'll be doing case management, setting up individualized plans for these individuals to help them understand. Right now is lack of housing. Maybe some of it is needing workforce development, which is going to be a big part of this. Working with Chris Montgomery, working with Tim Penix, working with city government, really have them take a look at DPW and Parks Department, grounds crews, the water department, opportunities for them. So credible messengers, mediation, the case management. We're going to be doing the workforce component of it, but the really new component of it, George, is the cognitive behavioral therapy. And it is an opportunity for individuals to actually get into group sessions with credible messengers and licensed therapists to be able to identify the thought processes that get an individual from, you and I have a disagreement, George. It doesn't evolve. Our thought processes don't get us to the point where I need to get done to resolve our dispute. So
Right.
what is that series of thought processes that people go through that have been crafted over the course of their life? And so to be able to get them in a room with individuals that will listen to them and talk to them. Many people don't talk to these individuals. Whether they're afraid of them or they're abhor their existence,
Right.
So that cognitive behavioral therapy is going to be critical. And there are skeptics, we as a people don't really go to therapy. So here is, how are you going to get them there? And so that is what credible messengers really will play a big role, because getting them in the room with these individuals, these are trusted individuals that will say the therapists are people who are culturally, racially, look like, understand the culture and the individuals who are coming, many of which their own family members have been victims of gun violence.
And so and I love what you just said, Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens, and what I heard you and how it got twisted was that, oh, you're going to pay folks to do crime, like who are in the street, right? That's how it got
Exactly.
interpreted in the community.
Exactly.
So in order for you to not have it be perceived that way, y'all proposed something different. And so what has differently been proposed? Yeah.
So we nuanced it a little bit. It was introduced again in the media outlets, not yours, others, that we were introducing workforce. Workforce was always part of the equation. Right. So now we're directly tying the stipends, the incentives to workforce development initiatives. Some workforce development initiatives we have in our community actually pay people while they're going through the trainings. Right. Others who provide, for example, soft skills development, do not pay. So we want to incentivize people to stick it out. Jubilee does a great job of skill development. So while they're with Twiggy and Walt, we're going to give them a stipend, an incentive, so that they stick with it. The important thing is to introduce people to something they haven't been introduced to and help them stick with it. It's like exercise for you and me. Those first couple days we get done exercising and we like, forget this. You got to get past that point.
Right. Yeah, and and you were talking about Twiggy and Walt at Jubilee Homes, and that they were going to get a stipend and that they do workforce development. Some of that was cutting out on us. But you know what I would love to see? And you talked about the cognitive behavioral therapy and the therapist. What we need is some of those same credible messengers to stand in front of us and say, I'm getting therapy, right?
I,
And you feel me? I really think that that's what
yes,
needs to happen, because it's one thing to
yes,
talk about it, it's one thing to say, I'm
yes,
doing it, and this is what it's doing for me. So I'm hoping that that is also a piece of it, so that even in their credible messaging, they have also been able to say, yeah, and this is what it's doing for me, because we know, look, I've done it, and happy to have done it. And because it's individual for you, right? This is not about what anybody else, it's about you. And a lot of times, so I'm just going to say to, and like you said, Sharon, they don't care what I say, but I'm saying that it's getting that checkup from the neck up it can help resolve a lot of issues, because we know that what we know, and you know, the studies show, you've been in this game for, you've been in the work for a long time. You know that it's
yeah,
not just that conflict, that the conflict right in front of that individual that they're dealing with. It's a whole lot of stuff that they haven't had an outlet
absolutely.
resolve, and it's showing up right now. And we're not making excuses. No, we're not. But we're saying that when that
No,
person is showing up that way, there's a lot underneath that you don't know that they've been through, that they have not been able to share, and so it gets acted out in some ways that we hope we can figure out with
you,
with with this
you're
particular
absolutely
event.
right. Some of these conflicts are decades old from beefs that happened before these young people were even born.
Weren't even
And
born.
so it is that residual, even born yet. And so it is absolutely the intention, because the credible messengers are the credible messengers, to get them bought into the therapy as well. Because and my therapy was not because somebody I didn't know told me you should go talk to someone. It was because a friend said, I did this and it really helped me.
Yeah,
Somebody I trusted
yeah,
told me that. And so I moved on to do that.
yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
part of that. So the council has not completely bought in yet. What's it going to take?
Their Councilman Majoke said that they had a couple amendments that they're going to make to um, the legislation that was presented. I can't tell you clearly what those are. Some of them, a couple shared with me, are basically administrative. And when I said that's not a problem, we can get that done. So I was hoping it would be done by this past Monday, but it did not happen. I have been assured by Councilman Joke that the not next Wednesday, the next council study session, that we should be able to see some movement on it. I don't know what the amendments are being, George. That is the only dilemma I have.
Here's the other piece of this, though. We're in a summer that's pretty hot, and some stuff is going on. At some point, we got to address this in a way that's going to give us the tools to actually address this. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I would think that this would be something that they would want to
I
move.
I always have to find the light in a situation. And
Hmm.
so we are where we are. It is July 20th, 2023. And so we are where we are right now. So as I look at it, I'm thinking that as we get approval and get people under contract, we're going to be into the fall. But maybe the reduction of the summer, the reduction of the heat, cools things down, and over the course of the winter month we have an opportunity to really do some significant hunkering down with people for some counseling, for some case management, for mediation. That is my hope. I got to make the best out of it, so I can't worry about what I haven't been able to do. How am I going to move forward?
And and again, the administration, Mayor Walsh, and yourself, obviously Mayor Walsh as the chief executive officer, 100% committed to this way of helping to reduce violence in the city through some sort of incentive program that will result in safer streets, in our community. 100% committed to that in whatever way, shape, form it takes is what I'm getting from you.
Yes.
Um,
And just for the viewers and for you, George, just to be clear, this is not a get out of jail free card program.
okay.
These individuals are presented a choice.
Okay.
And it is really important for the credible messengers that are going to bring on board to be just that, credible messengers, to be able to say, here is an opportunity. Our hope is that that older spectrum of age group, people start after to jail a couple times, after you've been shot at a couple times. Now you begin, after you've been in the hospital based on, being victimized by gun violence, you begin to start thinking about your life and what are the opportunities that you could possibly have. Here is an opportunity, but it's absolutely, it's a choice. So it is no, you have to buy into our buying into you.
Yeah. So so let's safer streets and let's talk about crime in the community. And you and I have, we've been briefed on what the conversation is going to be like. So let's talk about where we are with policing, right? The police report to you. So I think that's your area, right? So
Yep.
we do have, there's still, we're still real, let me put it this way. We're still building trust between police and community. That's part of it. And I don't know if we're there yet, but we're doing it. We're trying. Okay. And I know that you have a new chief
Right.
accountability officer. Well, let's start with that question though. Are we there yet with the trust?
Is a will all get there's from to be working right now. You're just delayed.
You were saying.
So about the chief officer. So the community remembers through former Governor Cuomo Executive Order 203.
This meeting is being recorded.
The police reform and reimagining policing. And so we worked with the county for, probably a year in implementing police reform and reimagining how we police. And all of this was happening after the murder of George Floyd during that year of 2022. And so the city took, while there were other municipalities that I don't apologize saying did not take this seriously, the city of Syracuse did. The mayor handed this to me and said, we're going to not only meet the requirements of this plan, but go full on into this, really to work through this. When we started, we were with Chief Buckner, and the work that we've been doing has been continuing without hesitation with Chief Cecil. And so we are, the relationship is a work in progress, George and the listeners. The history of relationship with police in this community is not going to be rectified because of an executive order from Albany. It has to happen person by person, encounter by encounter, policy by policy. And that is what we are working on. So we are, I believe, making progress. We are holding our officers accountable. We're holding our residents accountable to ensure that the relationships continue to build. The thing that we are struggling with right now, George, is recruitment. All across the nation, no one wants to be a police officer, and the ranks are suffering for it. And so we have a process now by which we're looking for candidates. Application process is passed for this round, but we're looking to move forward. So part of that accountability for us to the public was the commitment of the mayor in this current budget to hire on a chief accountability officer. So Mr. Um, um, Jawad Rashid came on board as the chief accountability officer. He's in the chief's office. So he is a part of the top level, executive level of the police department. And his role is to not only keep us on track with this police reform plan that we have, and we're actually talking about now what police reform and reinvention plan 2.0 looks like. Not just letting it sit as a stagnant document, but really continue to evolve it. But his job is to look at all policies in the police department. He is a lawyer by trade, and a lawyer in his work in Utica Rome area around police reform and police accountability. So we brought on an individual that has been doing this work. He's a member of the 100 Black Men, so he's very much vested in this community and the benefits of this community. So he's been on board, and we are thrilled with his work. He serves as an independent voice to the chief of police in policies that are going on. While people can reach out and should reach out to the Citizens Review Board for any complaints they may have, Jawad is also in the chief's office for that purpose as well. And his job is to really see how those issues, whether it be demeanor or use of force or even quality, the basic quality of life, interactions between police officers and our community, how on a systematic basis we can make changes to make things better between our police force and our community they are sworn to protect and serve.
We're talking with Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens here on Inspiration for the Nation, talking about policing, public safety, and she was just explaining the Chief Accountability Officer role. And I'm wondering, when we look at, you said we're going to hold, everybody's going to be accountable. What's our role as community? Like, how do we participate in our own freedom, if you will?
Right. So the more informal process is engaging in conversation. You have the right, absolutely, to report any concern of an interaction with a police officer through the Office of Professional Standards or the Citizens Review Board or our Chief Accountability Office. So understanding that you have those opportunities, threefold ways by which to communicate any concern you have. I encourage you to interact with police officers. We have activities. There's going to be National Night Out next Tuesday at Kirk Park again. Law enforcement, not just the police, but law enforcement across the board are there. It is a good time for all that are there. When I was there last year, I could not find a parking space. It was so packed full of people in the park on a beautiful sunny day. And we're going to do that again. DJ Bella has partnered with the police department. She had a celebrating 50 years of hip hop in Schiller Park this past Sunday. She's going to be with those DJs in Meacham Park from noon to 4 again. Not to mention, not to forget all the great work that Jimmy Oliver has been doing with the Police Athletic and Activities League. That is funded by the police department. And Jimmy is embraced by Chief CISO and that department. He has developed amazing relationships with the rank and file there. They participate in the activities. You are a man that talks for a living, George, and we have gotten away in this community of looking across the aisle at people that we may not agree with and having a conversation with.
True. You're absolutely right about that. And so how do we make that happen in a more, and you described some of the ways, but what are some other ways that we can begin to respectfully disagree? Because that's where you're going with that.
Right. So another initiative going on funded by the city of Syracuse through the council's approval is Interfaith Works. police dialogue opportunities. They are actively recruiting right now community members, and the program looks to identify community members and members of the police force, and they go through a series, I believe it's 6 to 8 weeks of dialogue. And through that dialogue, after talking with many people that have come through it from both sides of the conversation, misperceptions about people, beliefs that about police or beliefs about communities that are being policed, really get an opportunity to have some hard-nosed conversations in those dialogues.
I really recommend that because
Mm-hmm.
I actually participated in one, and I wish I could remember my officers who were in it, because they were like, if you have any questions or anything that you don't understand, just give me a
Right.
call. I'm gonna have to call Interfaith Works and see who was in my group, uh,
Right.
because I want to. And I've actually gone on a ride along as well, and so in the city of Syracuse back in the day, and so I encourage people to even do that, and then making sure you're safe with those, by the way. But
Yes.
then again, you don't know what you're going to get into. But I really encourage that, and I think, and this was right around the time that there was some escalating things happening around the country, and so you could
Mm-hmm.
talk really in a blunt and direct way to get and it doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything that's said, but the fact is you're going to get a perspective, and you're going to. So I really encourage that, and if you're looking for people to do the police community dialogues, I just say to folks, do it. It's a great experience.
And Bishop Colette Matthews, who works for Interfaith Works, she's taken the helm in organizing and implementing this. And so she's a trusted messenger in this community. And her idea, her calling for this is to get some real conversation going on in the dialogues.
And to be honest with you, Deputy Mayor, I think that the community is saying we're doing our part, but the police got to step up and do theirs too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it can't just be us making all the moves. They got to do,
Absolutely.
you know. Uh,
I remember in one council session, an individual said exactly what said, this is an opportunity, dialogues are an opportunity for the community to get the perspective of the police. And instantly that person was jumped on and said, whoa, this is a dialogue is a two-way street, a
yeah.
two-way street. So those methods I said of reporting any concerns are methods of accountability. One example of some things that we're changing. So one thing that's going to happen this fall is that the police are going to go to 10-hour shifts. The thought behind that is really you
As
don't
opposed to
want
what are they now? What are they now?
they are, you would ask me that.
Well, so
8 hour shifts over the course of 4 or 5 days,
all
but
right. So,
they're 5 days, but they're going to get more. They're going to have the same number of hours that they're serving, but they're going to get more days off. The premise behind that is that you don't want exhausted and stressed out policing. You
mhm.
and really building on the officer wellness program, the stressors of policing to address that. But I'll give you an example, George, of how we're changing policing in our community. Besides changing the hours worked, is during the course of the reform process, we really looked at not criminalizing behavioral health. And
Oh,
when I say behavioral health, I'm talking about substance abuse and mental health. Isn't you know as well as I do, walking around the city of Syracuse, there are people who are severely struggling in
yeah.
this community.
Yes, they are.
And I talked to a couple of mental health professionals, and they said really what escalated it was that during COVID, you could not have the sessions. So
Mm,
people in recovery need that social, so not only the clinical and maybe the chemical aspect of it, but it's the social interaction as well. And we couldn't do that during COVID. None of that could happen. And most of the folks getting the service couldn't do virtual. So there was time missed. And we are seeing the ramifications post COVID. The story has not been told yet. People are like, oh, you keep using COVID as an excuse. A worldwide pandemic is not an excuse. And we do not still know the ramifications of that worldwide pandemic on how we're living right now in this society. And so what we've done for policing is we have implemented what we call diversionary response. And diversionary response means that a person is in a crisis on one of the roadways or sidewalks of our city. And what used to happen is someone would call 911. They would dispatch the police officer who would show up equipped in his badge and his gun and go to intercept the person. And before bail reform, they would be arrested and taken to jail.
Mm.
This now is a partnership with Liberty Resources, who are the mental health professionals who have outreach teams that are all over the city. If you see someone in distress, you can call 211 or 988 and they will dispatch an outreach team. So what happens now for us is that training at 911 level has allowed individuals to be able to triage, is there an imminent danger? If there is no imminent danger, no weapon, no one being harmed, what will happen is that dispatch outreach team will go out to the scene and they will determine, do they need the police to be there because maybe the person is agitated or something, they're concerned. But most of the time, they're able to de-escalate that person, get them maybe to CPAP, get them some water, some food. And we just received through the Attorney General Tish James some resources that we're going to be RFPing out now to put a mobile unit out on the street.
Wow.
So there may be people who just need, let me get you some water, let me get you some food, let me talk to you about some of the solutions. And the police department, so when we talk about the evolution of the police department, they are like, this is absolutely what we need, because we don't want to go out responding to individuals who are in behavior or mental health or substance abuse crisis. We don't get trained for that. The medical professionals do. And so they are taking the lead on that diversionary response. And we took that from national models in Oregon, Denver, that type of thing.
Yeah, and that is actually what some of people in the community have been asking for. Like, I mean, that's a specific ask that, you know, you don't go to all of those calls, or that a police response may not always be the response that's needed. I got to ask this because, you know, I'm in the community. What do you say to those folks who say that they still don't feel like the police are necessary? They go back, they look at historical, why police was created. You hear all of those things.
Yep.
What do you say to those folk who have been talking about defunding the police? What's your answer to that?
I've never been a defund the police person. George, if somebody breaks in my house, I'm not going to call you.
All right.
There is a purpose for police. Our job and our commission is to ensure that I have respect for the role of officers and the role of police in our community. I have so much respect for that role and their purpose to keep us safe, that I also have an equal level of expectation for them and how they conduct themselves, because they are the only city entity that has the right to curtail your or my freedoms. So with that comes huge responsibility. But that does not mean that there is a call, or I do not subscribe to defunding police. I subscribe to accountability of police.
There we go. Deputy Mayor Owens, let me ask you a personal question, right?
Sure.
Around your work in the community and your role as a Black woman in leadership in the community. How do you see yourself in that role? And what are you still learning about your own leadership in spaces where you're often probably the only Black woman in that space?
I do not take for granted the privilege that I have to be able to be in spaces that everyone is not going to be in. And with that acknowledgement of that privilege, I acknowledge the responsibility that comes with that. And so in those spaces, I can never not be who I am. And who I am is Sharon, a woman, a Black woman, a mother of a child with a disability. All of that comes in a room with me.
Mm.
And I embrace all of that, because everybody in that room doesn't have what those experiences I'm telling you about and I'm talking to you about. So
Mm.
as I'm going into a room and having those conversations, every aspect of Sharon, because that's who I am, my being raised the way I was being raised, the faith that I have and what I believe, the fact that I'm a mother, the fact that I'm a Black woman who's raising a male child with disabilities. I had, for example, in a space, talking about spaces, talking to the chief, saying, yeah, chief, really talking about, so we now have crisis intervention training for our police officers. And I mean, maybe probably upwards of a third of our police force has had this crisis intervention training, and it manifests itself by them being able to talk people off bridges in our community and et cetera. Rooftops, etc. And so I had a conversation with the chief as a Black woman who is mothering a 6'3" Black young man who's in the autistic spectrum. So our conversation was, Chief, you have to give people 30 seconds to respond. That's all he needs, is because the what police are trained in commands to get control of a scene. He, in his space, in many other spaces, and a bunch of undiagnosed people, George, that we have in our community, don't react the same. And
Right.
so, coming into an understanding, one of the sergeants who leads that program has 3 sons, all of them in the spectrum. So
Mm.
he is training officers from a personal perspective of the interaction with people, and how just taking a minute to just assess the situation. If there's no danger, no weapon, assess the situation. Because my son will freeze. He's not gonna respond. He's gonna either one or the other. He's gonna freeze or flight. It is the way he processes the world. So Sharon, as a Black woman, mother raising a Black child within the spectrum, had the opportunity in spaces to be able to relay that information, and have my counterpart in city government, who is a white male who has the same raising children similar to mine, begin to bring those experiences together for the common thread that we have in
Mm.
two different perceived communities and experiences.
And what you implied, but you didn't say, is
Mhm.
there's, as a Black mother of a child on the spectrum, it's also a fear that I
Yes.
have, right? That's for real.
Oh, that's why I talked to the chief. I said, Chief, listen, everyone was talking about policing in 2020,
Yeah.
at levels we had never been or should have been and had not been. And in a conversation around crisis intervention training, I said, let me share this with you. And it was received. And
Yeah.
I believe that in any experiences, there are assigned officers to different places, different shifts. I think part of the problem we have, George, is that the ranks of the police department are so low, they don't have time to walk anymore.
Mm.
They're responding to calls constantly.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks back on the police beats when everybody was, had the police beat, and you would see police walking their neighborhoods. We were at almost 600 police officers back then. We're at 350-ish now,
Ish. Right.
ish.
So, what have you learned then about your own leadership in this, in the way you, that is it,
I, I, I,
I was going to ask, is it that you know that you can, because to be able to show up authentically as yourself as a
mhm,
Black woman,
right,
I'm suggesting that that may be challenging or has been challenging at times. What I hear Black women say is that they're not heard often, or that when they speak, what's then it's not acknowledged, but then someone else will say the same thing they said, and then it's picked up and it ran with. And so
right.
um, things you probably have experienced and talked about with your colleagues. So what have you learned as a result of all that?
So what I've learned is I had to grow in a confidence of who I am and come to a realization that it's okay to be me, that
Yeah.
I don't have to pretend to be anybody else. It's okay to be me.
Mm.
I have learned that um, while other people can spew information without the details, data, or facts, I can't do that. I need the detailed data or facts to
Yeah.
back up what I'm talking about.
I see you.
Other people may not have to have that.
Right.
But that is an inheritance of who we are in this country. We have got to be better all the time, and
Yeah.
it is exhausting.
So here we are. So Sharon, Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens, you know, Mayor Walsh has one term. What you looking at? That's my bonus question. You know, what does sister want to do?
So, there's no secret. It was in the paper. That blindsided me. I am considering running for mayor, seriously considering it. There are a lot of things. Um, uh, I always am astonished with people who kind of jump out and say, I'm going to do something. I look at them and say, you have no clue what that job entails.
There you
I
go.
watch it every day, watching Mayor Walsh, and I
Mhm.
watch him doing it with integrity. I watch him doing it with class, humility. I watch him doing it. And so we've done a lot of work here. I'm part of that legacy. I believe that I have something to offer to the city of Syracuse, not just from my government experience, but being on the ground in the trenches for a
That's
lot of years. And so it is a decision that is not just mine, it is my husband's, it is my children's, it is my extended families. And so I'm going to give myself this year, the remainder of this year, to thoroughly think it through. And then next year, you'll know for sure.
you know, and you know you need to come on back to
Yeah,
Inspiration
I'll
for
come right to you, George. Breaking news.
Let's do it. I remember when you first became deputy mayor, I was like, I had to run you down over Southwest. That's like, or wherever we were. We were somewhere. I was like, Sharon,
Right,
you gotta talk to me.
right,
You gotta talk to me.
right.
Well, listen, one thing we can say is you did say, and I think you just mentioned that boots on the ground.
Mhm.
That is the, and I said to you can turn your camera on now.
Okay.
Um, we'll get through this, but
Uh-oh, now it's not working.
all right. Well, there we go. We'll leave it at
Now it won't even let me turn it on.
that. But I will say this: that you're someone who's in. Nobody can say you're not in and about and of the community, and
Thank,
that is for
thank you, because
certain.
I've been in it a long time,
That's right.
a long time.
And
George, when you talk about the role of women in the challenge, when I took the job at Southwest Community Center, there were people in our own community who said, I can't do that job because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman.
because I'm a woman, and that's
And I'm an ex athlete up at SU. So you say stuff like that to me, it's game time now.
just remind us what you did on the Hill.
So a student athlete on the Hill. George, I was a student, I was an athlete, and I did work study. So it was a trifecta up there. And I was on the track. I was on the inaugural women's track and field team.
Look at you. All right. So y'all look at this. All right. So you heard it here. Sister Owens, we asked the question because y'all would
Yep.
have said, why you ain't asked the sister the question? So we asked the questions.
Yep.
And there's so much more to get to. We'll
Mhm.
we'll let you go home and
All right.
and be with the people you really care about and the residents of the city as well. We want to thank Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens for her time today, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us here on Inspiration for the Nation.
It's our pleasure to talk to you. A pleasure to have real substance conversation with you.
Inspiration for the Nation.